Okay, so good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are sitting. We are very happy to be with you. I am Stefano Merante. I am the Skills Development and TVET Program Officer at the International Training Center of the International Labour Organization. So I have the difficult task to lead this 60-minute session. And today we are going to discuss about how can digitalization help achieve inclusivity in education? Well, actually, this is a question. So, how can digitalization help achieve inclusivity in education? The task is quite complicated, but I have a lot of speakers today that are going to tell us their stories and their thoughts about this key question of these 60 minutes. And before starting with some short poll to actually have your views on this topic, I would like to hand over the floor to Ms. Vanessa Gray, who is the head of the Development Sector's Environment and Emergency Telecommunications Division at the International Telecommunication Union, for some opening remarks, which will help us in getting into the meat, into the core of our discussion today. Vanessa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefano. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. And on behalf of the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, I would like to welcome you to this Learning and Knowledge Development Facility session today. We'll be discussing the importance of both digital and green skills, and also the impact of digitalization on education and job creation in the green economy. We can see that both digital and green transformation towards more sustainable economies is picking up speed globally. It seems like every day we hear another world leader talk about the importance of the transition to an environmentally sustainable, circular, and climate neutral economy. And there's also wide recognition that a more digital world will have significant social, economic, and employment impacts. So we need to ensure that our future is both more connected and more sustainable, as digital improvements and tools will enhance efficiency in the green economy. At the ITU, we are committed to connecting the world and driving innovation in ICTs. And here we recognize that digital skills form the basis for to build more advanced skills. For example, if we look at education, access to distance learning can occur through connectivity and basic digital skills like accessing an online class through a mobile device. And the importance of connectivity was, of course, also highlighted more than ever during the pandemic when remote and online learning became the new normal. And here I'd like to just highlight the ITU and UNICEF. We're working together to connect every school to the internet by 2030 and to close the digital divide. And this Giga project will help young people access educational resources, open up opportunities, and empower them to shape their own future. And now, as we recover from the COVID pandemic, we have an opportunity to place green and digital priorities at the top of our agendas. We're making some progress, but we also need to ask how we ensure that we don't leave anyone behind as we transition to a more digital and green society. And creating inclusive and sustainable educational settings will be critical for achieving this, but we must pay particular attention to disadvantaged and underrepresented groups in education, training, and also on the labor market. Reaching net zero by 2050 will require rapid deployment of available technologies as well as use of technologies that are not yet fully on the market. For example, skills in digital and data analytics will be required for a net zero energy workforce. And one of the most common ways that digital technology can help increase sustainability in the different sectors is by introducing traceability and predictability through a smartening process. And this is particularly important in the area of e-waste management. We are currently finalizing a paper on digital solutions for a circular electronics value chain, which will be released next month on the International E-Waste Day. So we'll have some more insights there then. But besides looking at the opportunities of digital Of course, we must also address the concerns of going digital, including the carbon footprint of the ICT sector, e waste, cyber attacks, and also, again, the unequal access to digital infrastructure. Green minded education is an investment in the next generation of leaders, and young people worldwide are the future generations that will strive for a greener, cleaner, and more sustainable future. And today we're joined by four speakers from ITU's Generation Connect initiative, which aims to engage the global youth and encourage their participation as equal partners alongside the leaders of today's digital change. And digital technologies enable many young people to continue learning, but for others, it provided to be a major barrier when access, equipment, connectivity, or skills are lacking. These are some of the issues that we'll be exploring today, and I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I thank you, Vanessa, for actually creating a little bit the context of our discussion. I think it's particularly important to position our discussion of today's session at the intersection of these big revolutions that are happening. Of course, greener work on a greener economy on one side, and on the other side, the digital transformation that is happening. That is, of course, accelerated by the COVID pandemic. But how can these two come together in order to achieve better education results, to achieve more access to skills development opportunities? I think this is a key. And as you said, of course, the inclusion side of it is the most important, let's say, aspect that we have to take care of. Otherwise, this will widen the gap. And I would like to start today with a question to you. So, is the use of digital technologies bridging or widening the gap in terms of access to skills development opportunities? So, I will now launch the poll. Please give us your thoughts. I see there are already 31 people that are connected. So you can, in the polls section, you can find this question, and we would really like to hear your views, dear participants that are in this session. So is the use of digital technologies rather bridging or widening the gap in terms of access to skills development opportunities? This is the topic of today. So digital technologies can, of course, be an enabler for skills development, be an enabler for job creation. These are going to be the two big topics that we are going to cover today with the help of our panelists. But if they are exclusive, they are rather widening this gap. So we are really eager to hear from you. I hope that you have voted for this short poll. We are now showing the results so that we can move forward with our session. Okay, so I see here rather we have a quite positive approach to this question. So digital technologies for 83% of the people, it's rather an instrument if used in the correct way to bridge the gap. We will see maybe I mean at the end of this discussion if we still have the same idea or not. But really we are looking forward to the two panels that will form today's work and today's session. So I will now let's say, start the first panel. For the first panel, we will have two young people from the Generation Connect, that is the overarching initiative of the ITU youth strategy. And Generation Connect aims to engage global youth and encourage their participation as equal partners alongside the leaders of today's digital change, empowering young people with the skills and opportunities to advance their vision of a connected future. So in this line, together with our colleagues of ITU, we really wanted in each of the panel to have two youngsters from the Generation Connect initiative, together with a leader of today's digital change. So for the first panel that will revolve around the evolving role of digital technologies in education, we will have as ITU Generation Connect representatives, Daniel Kalemi and Enrique Castro. Good morning. And then, as let's say, key expert of digital change, we would like to welcome with us Simone Schmid from FESTO. So good morning, everybody. We would like maybe to start with a question to Daniel. Let's try to put the focus on formal education. So we see that education and training systems are evolving let's say to achieve digital literacy for all, laying the foundations for a more sustainable development. What are your take on these reforms that are happening in education and training systems? Is it really inclusive? Is it really achieving digital literacy for all? Daniel, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to speak here on behalf of Youth Voices, along my three other Generation Connect Youth in Voice. I actually have my answer has a two-part answer, let's say. The first one has to do with equity, and for that, I would like to share a short story. Last year, during my spring break, I returned to my home, and there was my little brother. He's in sixth grade. So he was doing an online session because schools were closed. But what I noticed was that none of the students were actually listening to the professor because the professor was very disengaged. They didn't know how to use Zoom. They were connecting and disconnecting. They didn't know how to share slides or anything. And this became like a terrible experience for all the students. And at the same time, they were just playing online games while the professor was speaking. So I would say that it's really important while we try to embrace new technologies, they need to be right. We need to know how to use them. And this has to do with equity, because while more developed countries have trained students and teachers to use those platforms, many other countries lack this capacity building option. And the second one has really to do with expansion, which, as we already know, 3 billion people already are unconnected in this vast network. And we really need to work towards fostering and accelerating this process. It might seem that both equity and acceleration are bumping and trying to strip each other apart. But I think that we need to improve and work on a system where both can work along with each other, so that while we try to expand those systems and make it more accessible to everyone, it needs to be an equitable system where we try to use capacity building programs and digital skills sessions to help both students how to learn and engage, as well as professors, students, and all mentors who are involved in the process.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Very inspiring example. I think we all have had this little boy or little girl in our houses in the last couple of years. But then we will try to understand from Enrique and from Simone how we can try to, let's say, avoid that kind of situation. But of course, into a situation like that, if you have youngsters or young person living in the rural sector, living in non-connected areas, these kind of issues become even bigger. So actually a key point maybe for those who think that digital technologies may widen the gap rather than closing it. But at the same time, Enrique, we also see that e-learning is taking a lot of power, is taking a lot of traction, and a lot of programs can actually help not only in the formal education pathway, but really also through non-formal and informal learning. I know you have been working a lot on these topics and how e-learning can also achieve sustainable development and the sustainable development agenda. Of course, as UN agencies, we are all looking to contribute to that. What are your takes on that?
Okay, actually, I think internet is a great tool to learn new stuff. And I think with internet, we can access to a lot of knowledge with one click. This is very important because the people who doesn't have the opportunity to go to a school, if we teach them how to use internet, they're gonna have a lot of opportunities to learn new stuff. The point is sometimes the governments apply and install projects and they don't teach the people how to use the internet to learn new stuff and learn new stuff on internet. And well, I think we have to encourage and implement more digital communities to learning because this is very important for our sustainable development because it's not only give the connection to the people. We have to teach the people how to use the internet and learn and improve their skills. And well, with the learning, actually, I have my own experience. I learned a lot of stuff apart from the side of my university because I learned how to, for example, coding from internet. I don't learn that on my school. And I think the people with fewer opportunities can learn new things, join to digital communities, and start to think, make a reality the new projects or develop them directly to help their communities.
Thank you very much, Enrique. Yes, I think this idea of learning communities, of course, is a very enticing idea, and we would like really to foster non-formal and informal learning. As you would say, we have a tool in our hands that is internet and everything, the different applications that are coming up, and of course, accelerated by the COVID crisis. But how can we reach communities to make them learning communities? I think this is, of course, a great challenge that we have, but one that could actually solve a lot of developmental issues that exist in those communities. And I think this is a real added value that we should leverage on. And I think we are working on that. Just before handing over to Daniel, who has a question for Simone, I would like to just flag that in the chat box, I have posted a Padlet link. So to all of you who are here, please feel free to access this Padlet and try to note down some key takeaways that you have from the speeches and the interventions that we have today, so that we can maybe have a final reflection all together on the things that we have learned or some key points that we would like to bring home. But Daniel, the floor is yours for a question to Simone.
Thank you. So, since Simone is a representative of FESTO Didactic, I was curious to ask, like, how do you actually go to design those platforms or those programs which are targeted for youth?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Simone. I'm from Germany. I'm working for FESTO Didactic. And thanks for this question. I would like to present my two key learnings on how to design programs for youth with regard to digitalization, inclusivity, and green skills. So first of all, you need to spark curiosity for your topic. For example, we have Bionics, which means the symbiosis of biology and technology. Bionics inspires and it generates interest. So it's interesting for people around the world, especially for children. And this is the engine for learning. Therefore, bionics is interesting especially for girls, due to the fact that nature and biology are familiar topics to them. It's a door opener to engage girls in STEAM, and STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math related topics like coding, microcontroller, or mechatronics. So this is in with regard to inclusivity, a perfect tool to address and we can close the gender gap to promote girls and get young people interested in a scientific, in a technical career at an early age. So what does it mean with regard to foster the green skills? Nature is smart and learning from nature is smart as well. So to learn more about energy efficiency, for example, if you see kangaroo jumping, so after each jump they recover energy. if you see birds flying, then you learn something about lightweight design. If you see ants or birds, bees, then you learn more about swarm behavior and communication. So nature has evolved over millions of years, and this learning is now very effective to transfer in automation technology, for example, to produce greener and sustainable products.
Thank you very much. Sorry, please.
And my second key learning would be that you need to understand how youth want to learn and want to learn new things and which tools they are able to use. For example, YouTube. They used to work with YouTube tutorials. So make use of digital tools and online learning platforms to promote digital skills. And we have also the topic of mobile learning. And herewith we are addressing the skill that, for example, the kids have to build bio-inspired robots and can remote control them with their own mobile phones. So what we want to achieve here is to let them have fun while learning new things. So if they see that this, for example, the robot fish is swimming, that the birds are flying, the flower are opening their leaves, they really enjoy learning. And so this is the way platforms or programs in general for youth should be designed in future, especially when you want to address digital skills, green skills, with regard to inclusivity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks also for bringing into the discussion when we are talking about inclusion, the gender aspect, which is of course a great topic to touch, and in particular because of the low rate of youngers around the world that are in, let's say, engaged in STEAM focused programs. So this is really a developmental objective that we should always take into account when designing platforms. And of course, use the tools that people use. This is a very nice tip, and the tools that people love. I think this is a great practical tip that we may bring in particular for green skills development. Enrique, maybe you would also like to address a question to Simone.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to ask a question to Simone, and my question is, what is your experience of quality of physical learning versus virtual learning?
Okay, let me share my experiences on the topic of STEAM education. So we focus on the T inside STEAM, which stands for technology. To train technical skills, physical, hardware, learning solutions, and equipment are still needed, because hardware-related products ensure exciting hands-on experiences to foster competencies for a future career in engineering, with the result of developing sustainable solutions for a greener future. For example, with Bionics for Education, this is our educational concept. For secondary education, we offer a very project-based learning approach with practical-oriented learning, mainly, as I said, for kids starting at the age of 10. So, but we also have many other STEAM-related topics for vocational education, for example, where we also address mechatronic competencies or electric competencies with accompanying software tools like virtual reality or augmented reality to create an interactive and new way of learning. But we also have courseware, we have online courses, open source available. So this is a topic of access, where they learn more about renewable energies, about solar and wind power, about e-mobility. So current topics which are of interest for youth. And with the delivery of necessary hands-on experiences, we want to enhance green skills for the workforce of the future. And COVID opened a new chapter in this way because the pandemic showed us the increasing importance of virtual learning. So kids are now used at home to do homeschooling activities. They use virtual collaboration platforms to interact with each other. And this is supported by digitalization. So the impact of COVID and the requirement of Wi-Fi at all have really opened the door for many families that prior did not have the laptops, such tools, or access to Wi-Fi at home. So to sum up, it's not a question of physical learning or virtual learning. It's a combination of both. And we call this a blended learning approach. Means the symbiosis of physical and virtual learning is the best you can offer for a hands-on learning approach and a valuable contribution for a sustainable future in technical education.
Thank you very much, Simone. I think the point you raised were really spot on. And of course, as we would say now in the e-learning community, the future is blended and already the present is blended. And I think that a lot of things are coming up, specifically also with the use of augmented reality and virtual reality and the way in which we will be capable, and we are capable already, of mixing it up, augmented reality, virtual reality, and physical reality. So I think this is clearly the way in which learning will take its most effective shape in the decades ahead. Of course, you may want to respond. There is a request for more information in the chat box. So Simone, maybe you want to give some links or some tips. Maxwell Max has posted in the chat. So maybe in these upcoming minutes, you will like to give maybe some links or some of your, let's say, of your documents of FESTO Didactic on how you are moving on those topics. And I think on our takeaway Padlet, we have two posts already, very interesting ones. Of course, someone is writing, it's not about the digital tools as such, but people need to be able to properly use them, and we need to give the incentives to learn and engage. I think this is a great point. It's not the tools, are tools, are instruments. So it's about the attitude. And I think this is, of course, very important. Attitude and skills are the ones that can really trigger this change, the use of digital technologies in education in order to achieve inclusivity. A second point that was written by our participants, attendees to this webinar is this idea of learning from nature that can be applied to technology. I think this great point that you were making, Simone, around bionics and how you can actually bring biology and technology together in a way that at least next time the 6-year-old brother of Daniel is not going to avoid the class and play digital games, but we should rather use digital games for digital skills development, so through gamification and other stuff. But here I think the point is critical. Not only the users need to be brought into this new revolution, but also the vehicles that are the teachers, that are the trainers. I think this is a key point for our discussion going forward as an international community working on this topic. So the role of teachers, the role of trainers, the role of all these intermediary actors that they can play in this revolution. So big thanks to Daniel, Enrique, and Simone for this first panel. It was great to hear from you how we can try to improve education and training systems in order to leverage on the different opportunities that digital technologies give in terms of green skills development. Now we are transitioning towards a second panel. I just noticed there is a very interesting question from Ziad on how we can integrate hands-on activities in vocational education with e-learning, with digital learning. Maybe Simone, at the same time, you can maybe give some of the links of the work that FESTO Didactic is doing on mechatronics. I know it is a big, important field of work for you, so that we can respond in an asynchronous manner Ziad's question. Of course, this is a big topic, and as I said as well, the use of augmented reality and virtual reality is let's say enhanced throughout the last few months in order just to respond to that very question of Ziad Said that was posted in the chat box. So transitioning to our second panel, being also aware of the time, it's already 11:30 Turin time. We are looking at discussing in the next 20 minutes on this fundamental central question. That is, are digital technologies a job creation enabler for excluded youth within the green economy? We wanted to actually tackle this question as a key question in this second panel, because for young people, jobs are still at the heart of their preoccupations. And any one of us has colleagues or friends or sons and daughters which are in their early 20s, and at this age, actually the transition to labor market in the two ways that we are going to discuss through this panel, being on wage employment or on startup and business creation, is really a key preoccupation for young people. So we would like to discuss this with two youth voices from the Generation Connect initiative, Emmanuella and Canice, and with an expert leading in the digital change, Raphaël Dard, that is who is the Learning Solutions Program Manager at the International Trade Center. So we are happy to have the three of you in our panel. Let's start with Emmanuella. Emmanuella, of course, we are discussing about school to work transition as the key transition of people towards the labor market, in particular in emerging and developing economies where the share of youth is actually quite impressive. Now, what is the potential of the use of digital technologies in supporting the transition of vulnerable youth towards the labor market? This transition is quite difficult. Can digital technology already be providing some solutions, some opportunities for vulnerable young people?
Okay, thank you, Stefano. I'm Emmanuella from Generation Connect Africa, and I'm from Cote d'Ivoire. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel. Uh, okay, to answer the question, today everything is digital, and we have a wide choice of digital application. Using digital technology to adapt the educational system to the job market means having a clear vision of a field in which we want to acquire expertise and encouraging self-training. E-learning, for example, is our Alif with training platform. There are also activities of volunteer who offers practical training. For example, last ICE Girls in ICT celebration, we did practical training to some girls in robotics, computer network, maintenance, open data, and so on. So we are young, and we should be interested by this kind of training, this kind of conference to develop um auto education and be an important actor in the digital world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emanuela. Indeed, there are a lot of opportunities out there. Uh, Self-training opportunities, self-paced opportunities. I think, in particular with the COVID pandemic, we have had a flourishing number of opportunities for young people to develop market-relevant skills that would then encourage and support them to transition into the labor market. Canice, maybe your perspective now, very interesting perspective. Here, transitioning into the labor market will less and less mean to find a job, but it will rather mean to create a job. So to create startups, small medium enterprise, and young people have a lot of potential for this. can actually technology support youth business creation that is geared towards the achievement of the sustainable development goals, and in particular in the green economy?
Thank you for the question, Stefano, and greetings to all my panelists and everyone here today. I'm Candice James from Generation Crackneck America, and I'm based in Antigua and Barbuda, and I'm very happy to be able to collaborate with everyone in discussion today. I think that entrepreneur youth aiming to create a positive impact will solve a lot of problems in today's climate. So, for example, but for that, digital technologies can serve as a very powerful mechanism for problem solving, because there's a vast amount of tools and softwares readily available that help serve as the building blocks to whatever you're trying to develop or achieve. And lots of educational resources to learn from, just as much as there's data there to provide insights and how to best deliver impact. But I do think it's important to address the reality that sometimes the blocker is knowing what you need to be looking for, or avoiding how to avoid getting overwhelmed with everything that's out there, really and truly. And so if that's the case, you should start with getting a bit closer to the topic at hand. So like video calling with persons whose problem you're trying to solve, and talking closer with experts who know a bit more, so that you can get an overview of what's been tried before and insight into what haven't. And technology, of course, will currently enable that in today's climate. And then as youth, it's your responsibility to bring the energy to the table. So digital technology has made it easier than ever to do low-scale, rapid prototypes to test your ideas out. And so whether it's through simulation, 3D printing, or if it's a crowdsourcing effort, you can constantly iterate to find out what methodologies are most effective, what solutions are most sustainable, or what business models are most economical. And you're gonna have to spend a lot of time trying to optimize those three while making data your best friend. And I think that if you do end up with something that's meaningful and can make sustainable impact, you might want to engage in a broader community, such as like online hackathons, innovation competitions, and pitching event to find like-minded individuals and make more connections that can, team up with you and support you on your journey to make a meaningful contribution to the achievement of SDGs.
Thank you very much, Canice. Indeed, there is, once again, there are more opportunities through digital hackathons, through digital technologies for young people with brilliant ideas to achieve sustainable development goals, and to achieve sustainable, also as well, economic objectives, to be supported, to be coached, to be mentored. And a lot of programs have been launched in this sense, and this is indeed a great opportunity. We still have to see the inclusivity of it. I mean, is it always open to a certain type of young people, especially in developing and emerging economies? So this is still an open question, and probably something that we are going to discuss later on. I saw that Raphaël was here, but now, okay, he's here. Okay, fantastic.
I'm here.
Okay, we couldn't see you for a moment. Emmanuella, maybe you would like to address a question to Raphaël.
Yes, of course. So, Raphaël, I would like to know, what's your insight about designing green skills and educational opportunities for you?
Thank you, Emmanuella, and good morning and afternoon and evening to everyone. To me, the important thing about designing green skills and educational opportunities for youth is around three areas. Some of them have been already mentioned, obviously. The first one is motivation, the second one is meaningfulness, and the third one is actually green, and I'll explain why. The motivation for learning and good experience from the user perspective and the learner perspective, you need to have appealing content. You need to have compelling content. And this is hard to do, to put together content that makes sense and that is attractive. You can imagine in your own cases when you went to courses that some professors or some content were engaging and other ones you wanted to sleep. And this is a challenge to make content that is appealing. And then connected to this is the container. How do you wrap up the content? How do you make that the participants are going to actually interact with the content and be active and not just passive listening to a long, you would prefer trainers who are actually asking you questions along the way rather than someone who constantly talks without asking you questions. On meaningfulness, it's connected to the content, and depending on who your audience is, if you're designing content, you need to think about what their context is. It needs to be talking. If you're from Latin America, you might want to have Latin American case studies, not something that is from far away and different from your culture. If it connects to your culture, it's going to be more easy that you get your emotions engaged, and that's how the learning happens. Also connected to emotions is a community, related to your community. If you can make content that is related to the community and that is relevant, that you're already achieving something that is creating impact. And last point, but not least, when I say actually green, it's important to assess what is green, because there's a lot that's being told, and unless you measure and you are attentive to the details, you might be considering solutions that are known to be green, but when you do the actual analysis, they are not so green at all. I'm thinking a bit an extreme case, but we are talking about electric cars replacing the problem of CO2 emissions, but actually we need batteries for electric cars, and where do the battery come from? Well, they extract another type of product from the planet, and so we need to analyze the whole life cycle of projects. Of products and services.
Thank you very much, and I think these are very important tips also for youngsters who want to engage into this e-learning, let's say, into this e-learning world. Canice, you had another question for Raphaël.
Yes, certainly. So as a software engineer, I've seen that, of course, it's become a huge topic of discussion, and a lot of people are getting very interested in the development of different learning platforms to be deployed in remote learning. So my question to you, Raphaël, is that if you could say one thing to developers of green online learning platforms, what would it be?
Canice. I again will echo something that was said by Simone and repeated by Stefano. The blended learning aspect is critical. I can give you 3 concrete examples. It turns out that by me being forced to work from home more, I discovered that I was relying fully on IT and not connecting so much face-to-face with my colleagues. Not being able to be in my office, but I found that I could concentrate better on some of the work I do. And when coming back to the office, and now we're asked to come back 40% to the office, I realized that the blended approach is better, and I like to be able to go out in the afternoon at my place and concentrate and not be bothered by people just jumping in my office and asking me something in the middle of a task, which would require more time for me to get back to the task. So this is an example of a blended learning. Another blended learning was when I discovered this week, my son was showing me his online learning platform from his school. He was back from his school, the school just started. He was showing me how great his online learning platform was, which just is complementing his day-to-day school work. And it's adding a dimension to your work. And the last example I can give, which is a training I'm currently preparing in permaculture in Guinea, Conakry. We are delivering a training which in the morning, it's over 2 weeks. In the morning, it's done online from in a live format from a trainer who is in France, in Ardèche, and he's going to deliver the theory in the morning. And in the afternoon, the learners from 4 villages in Guinea are going to be practicing what they were told in the morning. So they would be in the field actually implementing some of the learning that they had online. And that's a nice way to again, use the dimensions and the assets of the online or the ICT dependent technologies, or sorry, means, and the hands-on. And that's also echoing a question that was from Ziad Said saying, how do we integrate hands-on activities in vocational education? Well, there is always an aspect of theory and practice in everything that we learn. And I think it's a nice way to probably use the blended, or the blend of approaches. And another thing I wanted to say, to just conclude on my intervention, is consider also which ICT tools the target audience are already using. I found out that I use an online learning platform, but it could be connecting well with a WhatsApp group that people from my audience were using together. And it's another platform, but it connects the learners who have been maybe engaged through my platform for some time. They can continue interacting even after the training and learn from each other and actually share what they have achieved to do with the learning post facto. So that's taking a longer journey and a longer learning period for the beneficiaries.
Thank you very much, Raphaël. Myself as a trainer, I can also tell you a lot of stories here. I mean, we did a training on Facebook because actually these are the new means, and use the tools that people use. Raphaël, great tip. And we did trainings with, as you said, in duplex, so with trainers here. And I think this is also a very important, good, positive impact on our movements. So on the limitation of excessive flights that we have taken in the last few years as a system. And it also brings back to this new normal. And I was last week in a mission in Dakar, and at 7 a.m. I had a webinar, and then at 9 a.m. I had a face-to-face workshop. So this is also how future will look like, and we will have to cope with that. But this is a great challenge in terms of skills development for ourselves and for the training systems in general. And I think this is key. But Raphaël, let me do one question that is a little bit outside of what was prepared.
Sure.
Do you feel that there are job possibilities for excluded or vulnerable young people in this green transition, leveraging on digital technologies, of course?
Thank you for your question, Stefano. I think we are maybe making too much of a differentiation between what's based on technologies and what's not. And also, you and I know that we have many layers of technology. I know some places in rural Africa where smartphones are not used, yet they have basic GSM phones, which can use the SMS technology and actually hold a keyboard, which allows for people sometimes to learn the alphabet just through the keyboard on a small, very basic phone. So in the case I gave you early on the content and the container and the motivation, in the project that I'm running in Guinea right now, the way to find some motivation for the people in rural areas, I looked at something that motivated me in agriculture, which is permaculture. And I thought about developing a course on this topic because I know it's sustainable agriculture. And it is, the training is delivered both through, as I said, IT means and face-to-face means. And it's a continuity, it's a continuum. The agriculture sector people who are going to work are not the same one we've known for the moment until now. They're also going to be using technologies. They might use some watering systems that are based on technologies, not communication technologies, etc. Well, there are communication technologies. So in order to see when do they have to water the plants or to help the growth of the plants. And so I mean, we need to see technologies as a broad area and not just as the communication means we mostly do and in the education. So what I'm saying by this is, yes, job opportunities are generated through the use of technologies and in various sectors, in many sectors. You need to assess for each sector that you're considering which technologies would be meaningful. Also for logistics, when you have products which require to be harvested and distributed in the country, well, obviously communication means will help a lot. And so well-educated people in accessible technologies will get jobs because the technologies facilitate their job, which maybe their grandparents didn't used to use.
Thank you very much. Yes, I also posted on the chat some experiences that we have been crossing, Shamba Shape Up, but others, of course, as you were saying, in rural Africa or in rural context, new technologies is not what we mean by new technology. And so there is not a clear-cut distinction between what we would imagine as digital technologies, but indeed there are job opportunities that are growing in this sector, that are growing in the green economy, also through digital means. I think we have done a little bit we have discussed a little bit some topics. I would like maybe to hear from you, let's say from the six of you who have been involved in this panel, in these last 50 minutes that we have been discussing. What is the one point that you have heard from another speaker, or that you have heard from questions and from comments that have been posted? What is the one point that you would take home as, let's say, food for thought for your future activities as a person or as a professional? I will call you and we'll give you 1 minute for each of you. Daniel.
Well, personally, I would say learning how to learn and being flexible or adaptable would be one comment that strike with me, because as we move on from now and in the future, things will change rapidly. So we just need to learn how to adapt. Even teachers, we didn't anticipate 10 years ago that they had to learn digital tools, but here we are today. They need to use Zoom and all those tools, or even a taxi driver. But now if they go into platforms like Uber or anything, they need to use those tools to interact with the customer. So I think as we move on and as we facilitate all these jobs into the digital economy, we definitely need to be adaptable. We need to be open-minded and just to be flexible.
Great
because
point.
there is no choice, I
Enrique,
guess.
adaptability, keyword. Enrique, for you.
Being more flexible with the people, because sometimes we live in a bubble and we don't know how is the world from other people, and we have to teach them how to use the technology tools, how to learn from internet. I think we have to be more flexible with the people, the vulnerable people, to learn new stuff, to teach them to learn new stuff. Sorry.
Thank you very much. I think empathy is the key word there. So
Empathy.
after adaptability, empathy. Great point, Enrique. Simone.
Yeah, I found it very interesting to hear from Canice, I guess, that he told us something about hackathons, online hackathons, right? And because this is a very good platform, it's a challenge. So it's a gamification approach where we combine, so for example, there's a challenge going on in Germany about plastics. It's a plastathon called, and they do two topics like how to reduce plastics in the ocean. And this is, for me, a very inclusive part of the discussion, because everybody around the world can join this this challenge, and therefore digitalization achieved this opportunity to be part of this collaboration, and this goes on for a greener future for all of us. And this is one of the key learnings from my point of view.
Thank you very much. Inclusive, solution-oriented learning is going to be key. Great point. Emmanuella, your point. 1 minute. Otherwise, we move to Canice.
Yeah, so the point Raphael shared, the story that he shared was really impactful in regards to where a country where SMS was considered new technology, and that was the medium in which if you had engaged with them digitally, that's what you'd use, and so it kind of expand my mind to think of there's still low tech that's considered new tech, and you have to reach the certain demographics with what they have.
Technology would be probably the key word in there. Raphael, for you.
In my case, I liked what Simone introduced in the imitating nature and learning from nature. There is in nature this diversity and resilience. That is an example. And the diversity connects to what we spoke about earlier, using the available tools. And that connects with what Canice said. In some setups, you don't have access to smartphones. And if you also consider that the participants or the learners you are working for are accessing already some technologies, you need to assess the diversity of tools that they already have in order to reach them or to make them go to the learning journey using the variety of tools and not just with the one thing. And that connects with what Enrique said in the sense that opening your mind a bit to and learn what the context is in a broader manner than what your day-to-day work is on.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think it's critical that we keep this reflection over and over, and we're not happy with what we have, and we keep adapting what we are doing also to the needs of the communities we are working on and with. Vanessa, I would leave you the hardest task in 3 minutes, closing this session after all these rich inputs that we have given. I don't envy you, but I leave you the floor.
Thank you. Yes, so we're coming to the close of this session. I'd like to thank all of you for your time and the contributions. It's really, it was a great to be part of this discussion, and I actually learned a lot. So thank you very much to Raphaël, Simone, Canice, Daniel, Emmanuella, Enrique, and also to you, Stefano, to moderating such a dynamic session. I think you've done a great job, and we've seen a really good example on how it should be done. In terms of the discussion, we've highlighted promises in terms of building a more inclusive digital and green economy, new opportunities of creating new jobs, including green jobs in different sectors, but also I think we've seen that there's still plenty of work ahead. We heard how it's not so much about the digital tools as such, but that people need to be able to properly use them and also give them the incentives to learn and engage. And here, both formal and informal education and training systems are important and can help vulnerable populations to help achieve sustainable development. We also heard about promising things about the blended learning approach, where digital and physical really complement each other, and we can take sort of the best from both. And another few takeaways that I heard also in the last few minutes, so connectivity access and to equipment remains an issue, and we need to ensure that we are able to bring opportunities to everyone. Also, skills trainings need to be adapted to the interest of young people, so content needs to be attractive and appealing, context relevant, and I think we heard also meaningful, but it also needs to be delivered in a way that is attractive. So interactive, we heard about hackathons, or in general more the use of gamification to, again, to put it sort of into an attractive package. But we also heard that people need to adapt and be flexible. And the use of digital technologies can contribute to support young people create businesses geared towards the achievement of the SDG. So another, I think, very positive effect. Sorry, but we also need to analyze the term green, and I think remain critical and understand how green different technologies really are. We also heard about learning from nature, which is relevant when we develop these new technologies. So those are my key takeaways. And with this, let me also say a thank you to the UNIDO staff who enabled this session today. And maybe just if you have any further questions, please reach out to myself or to Stefano. You can also find out more about the Generation Connect on our website, and we will post the link here in the chat. And we, of course, welcome young people to join our virtual community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vanessa, for the closing. It has been really a pleasure. I thank UNIDO's colleagues for having invited me to moderate this session. I did basically nothing. I mean, I just gave the floor to these experienced people. But at the same time, we are trying to make something fun, light, but very spot on. So the future is blended, but the blending need to be inclusive if we really want to achieve sustainable development goals, and if we really want to achieve a bigger agenda for our planet. Thank you very much for this debate. It was a pleasure to hear from you. I left my LinkedIn page there to be in contact, and we would like to partner with you here at ITC-ILO in other initiatives. Thanks once again for the LKDF Forum for this great day, and looking forward continuing these big discussions. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.